Women are learning that they do not need to explain their worth, prove their loyalty, or earn love through suffering. They are realizing that peace is more valuable than validation and that solitude is more sacred than staying in a connection that diminishes their spirit. This transformation is reshaping relationships everywhere. When a woman awakens, she stops accepting half-hearted love. She no longer interprets inconsistency as passion or confusion as mystery. She understands that a man's emotional unavailability is not a challenge to fix. It is a sign to step back. This clarity is her liberation. She is not abandoning love. She is redefining it. She is no longer looking for someone to complete her, but someone who can meet her. And in that shift, she becomes magnetic. Her energy changes. Her standards rise. Her silence becomes powerful. The feminine awakening is not against men. It is a call for balance. When women awaken, they invite men to awaken too. They call forth a love built not on control but on consciousness, not on fear but on faith. Emotional accountability means that both people in a relationship must take responsibility for the energy they bring. It means communication replaces manipulation, empathy replaces avoidance, and understanding replaces ego. In this new wave of awareness, women are demanding something real, not perfection, but presence. They no longer desire men who hide behind emotional walls or use detachment as a defense. They want partners who can sit in discomfort, face their fears, and express vulnerability. They have understood that strength is not about control, it is about honesty. When a man refuses to take responsibility for his emotions, he forces the woman to carry the entire weight of the relationship. But that cycle is breaking now. Women are putting down what was never theirs to carry. They're no longer trying to fix or save anyone. They are stepping into relationships with open hearts, but grounded boundaries. This movement toward emotional accountability is not just changing love, it's transforming humanity. It's creating a new standard where connection is not based on survival, but on mutual growth. It is about discovering that peace is not something you find in someone else's arms. It is something you cultivate in your own heart. This return to self is not born out of disappointment, but out of realization. After years of giving too much, loving too hard, and losing themselves in relationships that demanded pieces of their soul, women have learned that true love cannot exist where self-neglect lives. They are stepping back from the chaos of needing to be everything for everyone and learning to be enough for themselves. This journey inward is not lonely. It is liberating. It is where a woman learns to embrace her own company, to fill her life with meaning beyond romance, and to honor her energy instead of scattering it. She begins to see that being single is not a punishment, but an opportunity to rebuild, to recharge, and to rediscover her divine essence. In this sacred space of self-connection, women are healing generations of pain. They are breaking the patterns of dependency that once told them love had to hurt to be real. They are learning that boundaries are not walls. They are gates that protect the garden of peace within. Every time a woman chooses herself, every time she says no to what doesn't honor her, she returns closer to her center. She starts to feel lighter, freer, more aligned. She becomes magnetic, not because she is trying to attract anyone, but because she radiates the calm confidence of someone who knows her own worth. This return to inner wholeness is reshaping what love looks like in 2025. Women no longer want to lose themselves in love. They want love that mirrors their peace. They are no longer chasing potential or trying to fix broken souls. They are seeking connection that enhances their light, not drains it. And in that shift, the quality of love itself is evolving. When a woman loves herself deeply, she no longer accepts the bare minimum. She no longer confuses intensity with intimacy or attention with affection. She becomes a reflection of truth, attracting only those who can meet her with honesty and respect. The return to inner wholeness is not the end of love. It is the foundation of it. When a woman finds herself, she finds everything. Her peace becomes her power. Her solitude becomes her strength. And her love, once given away freely to prove her worth, becomes something sacred, shared only with those who truly see her soul. The new era of balanced love is not about separation between men and women. It is about elevation. It is about two souls meeting in truth rather than dependency, in growth rather than control. For too long, love has been one-sided, built on sacrifice that flowed only one way. Women gave endlessly, believing that patience alone could heal what immaturity broke. But now, that old cycle is ending. Women are no longer walking away from men because they have stopped believing in love. They are walking away because they have started believing in themselves. The kind of love being born in 2025 is no longer built on illusions. It is grounded in balance, where two people come together not to complete each other, but to complement each other. This new love honors both strength and softness, both giving and receiving. It is not about dominance or submission. It is about alignment. Women have realized that real love cannot thrive when one person is carrying all the emotional weight. They no longer want relationships that demand them to be the healer, the teacher, and the forgiver all at once. They want partnerships where emotional effort flows both ways, where communication replaces confusion and consistency replaces chaos. The modern woman is not against men. She is simply against imbalance. She no longer confuses tolerance with love nor silence with peace. She wants a love where both people show up equally, where both feel safe to be seen and free to grow. Men, too, are being called to rise in this era. The awakening of women is not an attack. It is an invitation. It is a chance for men to reconnect with their own depth, to rediscover the power of empathy, presence, and emotional truth. The balanced love of tomorrow asks both sides to heal their wounds and meet each other in authenticity. It is no longer about one leading and the other following. It is about walking side by side, each honoring the divine energy in the other. This evolution of love is not meant to destroy relationships. It is meant to refine them. It is calling for maturity, for honesty, for the courage to love without games or masks. Women are no longer impressed by charm or promises. They are moved by consistency, compassion, and emotional intelligence. They are no longer asking for perfection. They are asking for partnership. They want a man who understands that strength is not found in control but in vulnerability, who knows that real intimacy is built on emotional safety, not on dominance. The love that is emerging now is conscious love, rooted in mutual respect, open communication, and shared growth. It's not about who needs who more. It's about two people choosing each other from a place of wholeness. This new era of balanced love is the dawn of something sacred. Women are no longer giving up on men. They are giving up on imbalance. And through that, they are creating space for a higher love to be born, one built on truth, equality, and divine harmony, where both hearts rise together instead of one being left behind. There comes a moment in every generation when love itself begins to change form, when the hearts of women all over the world awaken and say, no more, not out of anger, but out of truth. Not to reject love, but to purify it. In 2025, we are witnessing that sacred moment unfold, the moment when women are no longer giving up on men, but giving up on the versions of love that have kept them small, silent, and unseen. This is not the death of connection, it is the rebirth of it. It is the beginning of a new era where love is no longer about chasing or pleasing, but about balance, growth, and awakening. The awakening of the feminine spirit is not a rebellion against men. It is a return to truth. For generations, women have been taught to define their worth through how much they give, how much they forgive, and how much they can endure. They were told that love was sacrifice, that silence was grace, and that loyalty meant tolerating emotional absence. But something profound is happening now. A collective remembrance. Women are waking up from the sleep of pleasing, from the trance of waiting for validation, and from the illusion that they must shrink to be loved. The awakening is not loud. It does not need to be. It begins quietly in the soul when a woman finally whispers to herself, I am enough. This awakening is not born out of anger, but awareness. It is not a reaction. It is a realization. Women are beginning to see that they were never created to be an accessory to someone else's story. They are the story. They are realizing that love is not meant to drain them, but to expand them, that peace is not something they find in a man's presence, but something they bring into their own life. The old version of love was built on imbalance, one giving endlessly, the other taking without reflection. But that dynamic is collapsing, and with it, An entire era of emotional dependency is ending. Women are remembering who they were before the world told them who to be. The awakening of the feminine spirit is also an awakening of power, but not the kind that competes. It's the power that heals, that forgives, that walks away from what does not honor the soul. It's the strength of softness, the courage of vulnerability, and the quiet confidence that refuses to chase what should flow naturally. This awakening is not the end of romance. It is the beginning of divine partnership, where love becomes not a prison, but a path to higher purpose. Women are no longer willing to build love on conditions, promises, or illusions. The world is witnessing a quiet revolution of hearts where women have stopped begging for crumbs of affection and started demanding the fullness of truth. For too long, love has been painted as something that requires sacrifice to the point of self-erasure. But now, women are learning that love without respect is not love at all. It's dependency dressed in emotional language. They have lived through enough heartbreaks, enough apologies that led nowhere, enough promises that sounded beautiful but carried no action. And now, in 2025, they are no longer willing to stay in relationships that drain their light just because they fear loneliness. This shift is not coldness, it is clarity. Women have begun to see through the illusion that being chosen is the same as being cherished. They are no longer flattered by attention that is inconsistent or affection that disappears when it's no longer convenient. They understand that love built on conditions, on what they can give, how they can please, or how much they can forgive, can never be real. Real love asks for equality, not endurance. It asks for mutual effort, not silent suffering. Women are learning that when they keep pouring into a relationship that never fills them back, they are not proving loyalty, they are betraying themselves. The collapse of conditional love is a sacred moment in human evolution. It is not about rejecting men, it's about rejecting the smallness that once defined love. Women are stepping away from half-truths, from relationships that depend on emotional manipulation, and from men who confuse control with care. They are choosing a higher vibration of love, one that grows from honesty, mutual respect, and shared growth. This collapse is painful, yes, because it means walking away from familiar patterns and unlearning the stories that have been passed down for generations. But it is also liberating because it frees the heart from the prison of need. Women are realizing that unconditional love does not mean unconditional tolerance. It is not about staying no matter how you are treated. It is about loving with openness. But having the strength to walk away when that love becomes one-sided, this realization is shaking the foundations of relationships everywhere. It is teaching both men and women that love cannot survive without balance. It cannot thrive where one gives endlessly and the other takes without gratitude. In this new era, women are no longer falling for potential. They are honoring reality. They no longer believe in waiting for someone to change. They believe in walking in truth. The collapse of conditional love is not a loss. It is a rebirth. It is the moment when love becomes something higher, purer, and truer. Women are no longer afraid of losing someone who cannot meet them with sincerity. They have discovered something far more powerful than being loved. They have discovered the peace that comes from being true to themselves. The rise of emotional accountability marks one of the most powerful shifts in human connection. For centuries, women have carried the emotional labor of relationships, often being the first to apologize, the first to understand, and the last to give up. They have been the healers, the forgivers, the peacemakers, while many men have been conditioned to hide behind pride, silence, or emotional distance. But now, in 2025, that imbalance is being corrected. Women have awakened to the truth that love cannot thrive without mutual accountability. Emotional growth is no longer optional, it's essential. The era of men being excused for emotional immaturity is coming to an end, not because women are bitter, but because they have learned the value of peace. This rise is not about blame, it's about balance. Women have realized that it is not their job to raise grown men into emotional awareness. It is not their purpose to constantly explain how to love, how to listen, or how to care. For too long, they have been expected to be both the nurturer and the teacher in relationships, pouring into others while neglecting their own hearts. Now they are learning that true love does not require them to diminish their needs or silence their truth. Women are no longer interested in men who say, "This is just how I am." They want men who say, "I can do better." They seek emotional maturity, empathy, and awareness, not charm or empty promises. They understand now that the most attractive thing a man can offer is emotional presence, the ability to meet her in truth without running from his own shadows. The rise of emotional accountability is not the end of relationships, it's their evolution. It's the bridge between brokenness and healing, between fear and love. Women are not rejecting men, they are calling them higher. They are no longer accepting silence as strength or indifference as mystery. They are calling for men who are awake, honest, and emotionally alive, because that is where real love begins. The silence of women in this new era is not emptiness, it is evolution. For generations, women have tried to be understood by explaining their pain, reasoning through mistreatment, and fighting to be heard in relationships where their voices were dismissed. They have cried, pleaded, and repeated themselves in hopes that love could be fixed with effort alone. But now, a quiet revolution has begun. Women are no longer using words to prove their worth. They have realized that silence, when born from self-respect, speaks louder than any explanation ever could. It is not the silence of defeat, it is the silence of awakening. It is the calm that follows the storm of realization, the moment a woman stops chasing and starts choosing peace. This silence is powerful because it is rooted in clarity. It comes from the deep understanding that you cannot force anyone to see your value, to meet you halfway, or to love you. Right? Women have learned that the more they chase understanding from those who refuse to listen, the more they lose themselves in the process. So they stop explaining, stop defending, stop trying to be enough for someone who has already made peace with giving less. This quiet withdrawal shakes the foundations of emotional complacency because it holds a mirror up to the other person's soul. It forces reflection. It demands change without a single word spoken. In 2025, women are no longer trying to win arguments. They are choosing inner harmony. They have learned that not responding is sometimes the most powerful response. They have discovered that peace is not found in proving a point, but in walking away from chaos. When a woman becomes silent after giving her all, it is not because she has nothing left to say. It's because she finally understands that her energy is sacred. She refuses to waste it trying to explain to someone who only listens to defend, not to understand. That silence is her boundary, her declaration that she deserves better. This silence also holds deep spiritual wisdom. It teaches that love cannot be demanded or negotiated. It must flow freely. And when it doesn't, silence becomes a shield, protecting the heart from further harm. In that space of stillness, women are reconnecting with their intuition, rediscovering their strength, and learning to listen to their inner voice, the one that was always right. They are understanding that silence does not mean disconnection. It means redirection. It is where healing begins. This new silence is transforming relationships because it carries an energy men can no longer ignore. When words stop, the truth begins to echo. It reveals who was truly listening and who was simply comfortable taking without giving. Women are no longer afraid of being misunderstood because they are finally at peace with understanding themselves. Their silence is not an ending. It is a rebirth. It is the sound of strength disguised as serenity, a quiet revolution that says, I will no longer fight to be seen. I will simply rise, and those meant for me will see me clearly. The return to inner wholeness is the most profound journey a woman can take. It begins the moment she realizes that everything she has been searching for in others already exists within her. For so long, women were taught to seek completion in love, in approval, in being chosen. They were told that happiness comes when someone else finally sees their worth. But now a new truth is emerging. Women are waking up to the power that has always been theirs, the power to be whole, fulfilled, and radiant on their own. This awakening is not about rejecting love. It's about remembering that love begins with self.